Thank you. Thank you for the colleagues who will join me. Good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. Hope the annual meetings are going well with you and with all the representatives. My name is Frank Bousquet. I am at the IMF the Deputy Director for the Institute for Capacity Development, overseeing our global partnership. And it's really my pleasure today to welcome you to our capacity development talk. We will share with you today how the IMF has been supporting our member countries in building fiscal capacity, which is, as you know, critical. Critical for what? For sustainable public finance, for attracting the private sector. We talk a lot about that, but also for strengthening the state capacity to deliver on its development mandate. During this event, we are going to show how we started this work, what has been achieved, but also not only under the Revenue Mobilization Thematic Fund, we will also discuss the success and also the challenge and also the lesson learned. Lesson learned that have, by the way, helped us to shape the design and the launch last year of the Global Public Finance Partnership. Vitor, the head of the department, was here at this stage about a year ago. We are very happy to have with us representatives of 2 countries. At the end of the day, member countries are in a driving seat, with whom we have been partnering, strengthening capacity to implement fiscal reform and priorities. We were expecting Louis-Paul Modaze, who is the Minister of Finance from Cameroon. Unfortunately, his plane got delayed. So we are happy to have with us Regina Chinamasa, who is the Commissioner General for Zimbabwe Revenue Authority, and also Thabo Lejama, former Commissioner General of Revenue Service for Lesotho, who is currently working with the IMF on our fiscal development work. I'm also very, very happy to have with us one of our top key partners, Marietta Jager, Deputy Director General for International Cooperation and Development at the European Commission. Why is it important? Because the European Union is not only a long-standing top partner of the IMF for capacity development, but is also the #1 partner for the Global Public Finance Partnership. Remember, GPFP. That's thanks to the European Commission and many other partners as well. Okay, just to end, quick logistical note. You should have time for some quick questions at the end of this event. So please signal yourself to our volunteers wearing white jackets. And also let me now invite our speakers and leave you in the hands of our presenter and moderator, who is fantastic, Rebecca Spackman from the Fiscal Affairs Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you so much. And good afternoon, everyone. Ah, that's so much better. Thank you so much. A little bit of excitement in the audience. So we know that tax capacity is in both strengthening the revenue administration and having good tax policies and a legal system for your tax system is important. It's critical to foster and sustain economic growth. We know this. Mobilizing revenues is especially critical in low-income developing countries, in fragile and conflict states, as well as emerging markets. The multi-partner Revenue Mobilization Thematic Fund, or the RMTF, met the challenge to help countries through targeted capacity development. And over its 7 years of operation, the RMTF provided direct capacity development support to 43 countries, helping to build stronger institutions and more resilient tax policies and legal frameworks. And this was primarily in low-income developing countries, but also in emerging markets. In addition, the RMTF provided indirect support through the development of online training, workshops, peer-to-peer learning events, various tools, and working papers. The reforms achieved by the RMTF beneficiary countries made an impact. The countries made the impact. Let me highlight some of those achievements. If you look at this slide, 97% of RMTF beneficiary countries embedded a medium-term reform plan. That is sequencing the reforms to not only look at increasing revenues in the short term, but having a plan so that the reforms looked at revenue increases and sustaining those increases in the medium term over time. This was critical. 88% of the RMTF beneficiary countries use the Tax Administration Diagnostic Assessment Tool, or TADAT, to identify their strengths and weaknesses in revenue administration, to develop these medium-term reform plans and to measure their success. In fact, 9 of our countries in RMTF actually had 2 TADATs. They had one at the beginning of the RMTF and one toward the end. And what we found in all 9 of these countries is they all had improvements in indicators across the TADAT, which showed that they had strengthened their institutions. As a result of the reforms embedded, 63% of RMTF beneficiary countries increased their tax to GDP over the course of the 7 years, some substantially. In addition to direct capacity development, we also had indirect delivery modalities. And I mentioned before some of those. One of them was online learning and online training. 2 of those that we developed, one was called VITARA. It's the virtual training to advance revenue administration, and the RFAX, revenue forecasting and analysis. In a few short years, because they came on about midway in the RMTF, there were over 15, or nearly, I guess, 15,000 learners in these very short years taking these online training courses. VITARA was actually developed in partnership with others. We actually worked with the OECD, IOTA, and CIAT, which are international partners in which the IMF works with. And it was really to help build knowledge for managers, usually senior managers, but also frontline managers in revenue administrations. And it was really a standalone online training course, self-directed, so that they could build their capacity and learn. But what we found is we also then started taking this VITARA and incorporating it in our capacity development, so it became one of the tools. And lastly, what's really interesting is that many of our revenue authorities took VITARA and they've now taken it into some of their training curriculum beyond the RMTF countries. In fact, Italy and Brazil are 2 countries who have embedded VITARA in their training curriculum. While the RMTF was embedded in the IMF Fiscal Affairs Department, we could not have helped our member countries improve their domestic revenue without the support of our partners. First, our 15 donor partners who were able to support the program over the 7 years with $83.5 million US, as well as provide strategic guidance through the steering committee. And we really appreciate their support. Then there are the 39 development partners in which we collaborated and cooperated with in the delivery of capacity development in individual countries, as well as partnerships in the development of tools, and like the online VITARA that I talked about. Through partnerships, we have been able to leverage our collective expertise and resources to help countries achieve greater impact and sustainable outcomes. As the RMTF was coming to a close just a couple of years, or a year ago, we reflected on not only the achievements that we talked about, but we also looked at some of the lessons learned. And we took those to develop the Global Public Finance Partnership, the GPFP. The RMTF was half of the equation of building strong public finance institutions in countries. It focused on domestic revenue mobilization, which was tax policy design and revenue administration. The GPFP has expanded that further. And now it not only focuses still on domestic revenue mobilization, it looks at domestic resource mobilization, looking at also the spending side, expenditure policy and public financial management, aiming to strengthen those institutions as well, to have a full spectrum for the public finance system in countries and to help our countries. And like the RMTF, the GPFP is supported by 14 donor partners. But as we start today, I thought maybe we could start with looking back in time. Let's look back over the last 7 years of the RMTF. And let's look, how did our countries and partners achieve results? and how do they utilize and deliver capacity development through the RMTF? I'm privileged today, as Frank said, to have three people on stage with me today. First is Commissioner General from the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority, Regina Chimazawa. Thank you very much for joining us today. We also have with us, as you know, the Minister of Finance for Cameroon, got stuck on a plane, unfortunately, and I want to thank Thabo Latjama, who is one of our project managers in Fiscal Affairs Department, for stepping in. He actually has run projects in both the RMTF as well as the GPFP. He's also the former Commissioner General of Lesotho, so thank you, Thabo, for stepping in. And then from the European Commission, Marietta Jager, who is the Deputy Director from the Directorate General from International Partnerships. Thank you so much for being with us today. We very much appreciate it. So let's talk to our folks on stage. And Regina, can I start with you?
Sure.
It's okay, oh, very good. So I remember I was privileged to be able to lead your TADAT back in 2018, your Tax Administration Diagnostic Assessment, where you looked at the strengths and the weaknesses of the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority, the ZIMRA. So now looking from 2018 to now, can you tell us a little bit about how that worked for you? How did the assessment work, the TADAT, and how did it shape the reforms that you've gone through over the last 7 years?
Thank you so much. So as ZIMRA, Zimbabwe, we embarked on our first ever TADAT assessment in 2018, and it was exciting. I think there was a lot of capacitation which happened to the staff members so that they understood the context of the tool and how it can help tax administrations come up with reform programs. And we then took a step forward and we committed to a reform plan that was aligned to our national development agenda strategy, which was running for 5 years. And we are excited that one of the key weaknesses that we identified in our administration was around the system that was in place to manage the tax administration. So we made a conscious effort and we engaged AFDB. They come in to support us in the implementation of the system. And I'm happy that IMF then worked with us through support in identifying the TIN. I think that was one of the key issues that we didn't have in place. We had duplicate taxpayer accounts in the system. So we worked around establishment of a single unique identifier, which was the tax identification number. And I'm happy the system managed to deliver that. So we walked through that journey, and I'm happy that we managed to roll out our system in 2023, and it has resulted in exponential revenue collections through having that system. We also looked at how best we could improve on compliance, because that was another thorny area. So we worked on taxpayer segmentation in 2021 at the height of COVID. And I think it was a game changer for us because it didn't coincided with governments trying to put in place mechanism to boost revenue collections and also ensure they support businesses during that lockdown season. We also worked on our risk management. I think in domestic taxes, we didn't have a vibrant risk management system. So what we did, we worked on the compliance risk management, but at a corporate level, we then introduced our corporate risk and compliance unit, and culminating in the development of compliance improvement plan. And we are really excited because with all those initiatives, we've seen revenue growing over the past 7 years. Thank you.
Wow, you've done a lot. Yeah, I really appreciate what you said at the beginning too, that you tied your reform to your national strategy, and I think that's really critical. That was really a really important way to do it.
Sure.
Thank you very much. So Thabo, can I turn to you, and thank you again for last minute stepping in. We really appreciate it. So you've been a project manager. I know you're a project manager on Kenya, which we've had an RMTF there for many years, as well as the GPFP. So from a project manager's perspective, what were some of the challenges or lessons, or how did you deliver project management? How did you approach it, and how did you work with Kenya specifically, or some of your other countries that you worked with in the RMTF?
Okay, thank you very much, Rebecca. And Since you told me that I have only 3 minutes, 3 points come to mind in terms of how we approached capacity development. One is establishing the baseline. The second one is effective stakeholder engagement. And then the third would be the importance of a proper reforms management methodology. Okay, let me go back to establishing the baseline and also borrow from what Regina has said. Our approach here over the RMTF project was to run a TADAT, which also you led, Rebecca, to identify what were the weaknesses in the revenue administration. And in my own view, the TADAT helps not only to identify weaknesses, but identify them relative to best international practice. So the revenue administration understands where they are relative to where they should actually be in line with best international practice. So in Kenya, this is basically what we did, and that informed the reform plan that followed. And the diagnostics that we didn't do it only on the revenue administration side, it was also done on the policy side. Okay. And then based on that, our recommendations led to development of a medium-term revenue strategy. Now, that brings me to my second point, the importance of effective stakeholder engagement, because as we know, the revenue administration landscape, it's a very complex ecosystem with multiple stakeholders, with multiple varying interests. So it is quite important to identify who are the key stakeholders, what do they need from the reform, what is it that we need to do to bring them on board, and how do we do that? So this was one of the key things that actually played out in Kenya over the reform. And maybe the last one would be the importance of effective leadership of reforms. And here, I think I will start with like the political will for the reforms to take place. And then, of course, the commitment of management and leadership within the institutions that will be driving the reforms under the medium-term revenue strategy. To keep on making the changes, to kind of keep on monitoring, making sure that they're on track against the plan, and to kind of take corrective action. It's almost like flying a plane. You start off heading somewhere, but you have to make little adjustments on the way to get there. And I think with that leadership, political commitment, leadership commitment, but also having a very strong and structured methodology for driving these reforms. That cannot be overemphasized. Having that methodology, especially one that identifies what could go wrong and what is our plan B just in case it goes wrong. And maybe one also that ensures that our plans are realistic. They have supporting resources to get them well implemented, because much as this sounds quite simple, what we see in practice is that we'll have elaborate plans on how to reform the revenue performance, but we'll not necessarily see supporting resources to get that plan implemented. So what we kind of emphasized and had discussions with Kenya was, we need to see this plan. We need to see a business case for developing, for improving revenue performance. And more importantly, just last one point was, we're saying to the Kenyan Revenue Authority, come up with this plan, cost it, make a business case to the Minister of Finance, but don't just make a business case for how much you want to reform, but how are you going to account for this? Because the government is making an investment and it is expecting a return on that investment. So these are some of the key things that basically come to mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Taba. I really appreciate that you brought up leadership and the will of leadership. And Regina, I just have to comment. This is why Zimra has done so well, because of leaders like you who actually drive the reform. So thank you for bringing that up. So Marietta, maybe I can go to you next. So the European Union has been our top partner in IMF capacity development over the years, supporting RMTF as well as GPFP, as well as various other fiscal programs. You are in fact our largest contributor to the GPFP, and we thank you very much. The European Union has this branded phrase, collect more, spend better. In fact, this phrase really encapsulates all of the driving force and the driving theme of the design of the GPFP, the Global Public Finance Partnership. I think we even quoted you in our program document. We gave you credit. So as you look at these multi-partner thematic funds, how do they fit within your priorities? And what do you see as the most valuable aspect of our partnership?
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me. And on behalf of the EU, I can say that we are extremely proud to be one of the IMF's largest partner on the capacity development. And I think that since the beginning of our partnership, quite some time ago in 2006, we have invested almost 400 million euros in helping fund to deliver the knowledge on fiscal policy. And you're going to ask me why, why we've been so generous. And I can tell you, because IMF is doing an excellent work to support the low and middle income countries in enhancing their fiscal performance and strengthening their fiscal institutions. I mean, that's the main reason, but also IMF capacity development program really work hand in hand with EU budget support and the technical assistance that we are providing. So we are really working together for the benefit of our partner countries. And thirdly, as you said, of course, we've been very flattered that the IMF got inspired by our approach, collect more, spend better. And I think that really you took it into account while designing the GPFP. And the revenue and expenditure for us are essential to deliver efficient public services. And that's the main reason, why we will continue to support the IMF work in order really to help our partner countries to use their resources efficiently. As you know, in these challenging times, the public resources are more and more scary, and we need to use them wisely. And that's why I'm so glad to listen to the examples that you just shared with us. Up of my mind, I still can add some examples. For example, I was just in Uzbekistan and they adopted the new PFM reform strategy, also with the help of IMF. Mauritania introduced the new carbon tax. Then I think Senegal and Rwanda have strengthened the tax administration and even put it in the digital form. So there are plenty of successes and examples how about the fruitful reforms and how our partnership really can bring the tangible results. And I think that thanks to the EU support and also other donor support, and I use this opportunity to also invite new donors to join us. IMF will really be able to continue providing the high quality capacity development activities and really for the benefit of the countries, and also it's completely in line with our global gateway strategy. It's to bring more investments. For that you need a stable environment. I would say a regulatory fiscal framework is really the milestone. It's a condition for attracting also the investments, and that's why it's in our 360 approach, and we are going to support it in the future as well. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Marietta. And really, we were inspired by your phrase, but also we really value your partnership, and we thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I have one more question for each of you. We have just a short amount of time left, but Commissioner General, so let me go back to the TDAT for just a moment. You had a second TDAT, and you did quite well. I think you improved a lot of things. It gave us a window into the reforms that you've embedded and how you've achieved results over the RMTF. But now let's look forward. now that you're part of the GPFP and you're looking at more reforms and how you're going forward over the next 5 years. And in fact, in the GPFP, I think I know this is not your area, but you've brought in expenditure policy as well, because you can collect it, but if they spend too much of it and don't spend it well, then you'll have to collect more, and that could be a problem. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about the road ahead for Zimbabwe. What do you see as the reforms that you're looking to achieve over the next 5 years, especially through the GPFP or just the reform journey in general?
Thank you, Rebecca. So in Zimbabwe, I think having tested the beauty of the outcomes from the initial 5-year plan, we then did our second TADAT early this year, and thank you for supporting that mission. And we were excited by the results. I think in terms of performance, we improved on 9 outcomes, which was, I think, quite impressive given the size of the entity. So what we then did was to take those results together with, I think, additional support that came in through a tax gap analysis. We had never done one. We also asked for ones. So that it will help us inform and focus on areas, revenue head areas that are not performing, and then look at it, is it an administrative issue, is it a policy issue? And I'm happy that the results also gave us insights on how we can partner together with the Treasury, the policymakers, so that we can address the revenue gaps. And we have a very ambitious challenge that lies ahead of us in terms of the tax administration, to push our tax to GDP ratio. I think World Bank was making recommendations for LDCs for about 22%. So we have that ambitious target that we're working with. So one of the key issues that we're looking at, how best we can improve on compliance. So we have obviously missions that we had already done, but I think going forward it will be a focus areas on how we can improve compliance, how best we could tighten our segmentation, which we have already done. I think we have had insights around that. We also did a post-TADAT reform mission, which then helped us focus on key areas that we can focus on as an administration going into the next 5-year planning cycle. So what excites me about the capacity development is really you work together with the administration. You capacitate them, you stretch their thinking capacity, and you put in, I think, a high level of commitment to ensure that they do better. And we are focusing on delivering better. We have that stretching target that I've indicated, but it also requires a huge commitment and leadership to ensure that we deliver on that. We are also collaborating with our Treasury. Obviously, we have been collecting money, and we've been also looking at their side and say, are we getting the supply of public goods and services? So we are also looking at the social contract to say, after we've collected, are we getting efficiencies? Are we getting the supply of goods and services? Because we are the interface with the taxpayers. So there's also a conversation around where is the money going. So obviously we do have a lot of engagements, and we're happy that under the Global Fund program now, it's looking at the end-to-end processes, how you collect the money, how you spend it, and obviously that conversation is going to be a very critical conversation going forward, because as we improve on efficiencies, we also want to see increased delivery of public goods and services. Thank you.
And I really appreciate Zimbabwe. You're driving reforms, and it's actually exciting to work with you and partner with you, so we'll stick with you. No worry there. So Thabo, when you're delivering capacity development in these countries, we're the IMF, we're one development partner, but there's many development partners all in the same space, working with Kenya, where you've worked, and in other countries. How do you navigate that? How do you collaborate and cooperate in this real crowded space of development partners?
Okay, no, thank you very much, Rebecca. I think one clear realization among us as development partners is that we are working towards one goal. We are working towards helping the country to achieve better results. And what seems to work well in terms of development partner coordination is when we have this led by the country itself. Country leadership is quite important. And also when the development partners themselves kind of meet, more preferably, much more frequently, maybe say in the case of Kenya, we have a development partner group or grouping, which is actually led currently by the IMF and the World Bank. We meet on a monthly basis to take stock of who is doing what and where there are areas of potential duplication. Sometimes we have bilaterals between various development partners just to say, how do we get our work to complement, or how do we get to focus on areas that we are better suited to work in. So that actually helps a lot, because sometimes you might find that we are focusing on one area, but maybe we can sequence our work better such that maybe the fund will come in and do one part, and then it comes to a point where, say, FCDO will come in and then take this to finality. So, but I think, as I said earlier, the most important thing is realizing that the goal is one, and we can actually help the country achieve that if we collaborate more. But then again, let me take it back home and say, what I realize is that collaboration is not only just among development partners, but it should also be, more importantly, within development partners themselves. Let's look at our case as the fund. We have Afritech East, and then we have FAD, but we also have the country team coming into the country, setting priorities. We need to make sure that these three bodies kind of know exactly what the priorities are in the country, so that we kind of present a kind of like a single approach when we are actually like engaging with the authorities. I think this works very well, because it makes sure that nobody's left out, everybody's in the loop of what the priorities are and what are like the key things that we need to, or the key interventions that we need to make. Yeah, no, thank you.
Sounds like a lot of communication, internally and externally.
Absolutely.
But it's critical, so thank you very much, Thabo. So Marietta, I give you the last question. So you're our biggest partner in GPFP, thank you again. And we're looking to target and help countries in public finance over the next 5 years. So what do you see as the road ahead, and what do you want to say was achieved after 5 years?
Yeah, I always dream big, so I really, really hope that to see more countries being able to rely on the predictable and sustainable resources to finance their priorities. And to profit also from the capacity development, and also to have in place effective public finance management systems, because, as I said, this is the precondition. And of course, I hope as well that we can collect more domestic resource mobilization and attract, more partner countries to work on that, especially also on the expenditure side as well. And also, what do I hope more? I hope that to get more reliable and stable resources also on the donor side. As a EU, we continue to be a stable and predictable partner, and let's hope this will stay in the future as well. Especially, as you said, we are a good partner to the IMF for the capacity development. But I think that the domestic revenue mobilization and ODA, will unfortunately not be enough. That we basically provide this. What do we need now? 4 trillion yearly for achieving SDGs. So therefore, that's my last hope for you today. I hope that we really will be able to attract more private sector mobilization as well, so that they join the public sector to build together the sustainable development, the sustainable future, and also, with that, I would say, stable framework to give the investors I would say, predictability and confidence that they come big, and basically they help us to bridge the investment gap, and also I would say that the capacity development is the wise investment of taxpayers' money, and I hope that many more will join us in that endeavor. Thank you very much.
Well, we'll take your challenge, and we'll, together in the GPFP, we'll work with our countries to achieve that, or at least toward it, shall I say. Well, you've heard 3 different perspectives. You heard from a country's perspective who actually has done reforms and has received capacity development. You heard from one of our project managers who's delivered capacity development, and our partner who supports us and we work with through this capacity development work that we do so much in IMF. We have a little bit of time. We went a little bit over, but we have about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more. So I would open it up if there's some questions from the audience that you might have for one of our esteemed panelists. We're happy to take a question. If there's any out there, just raise your hand. Right here. Commissioner General, please step up, and there's a microphone for you, ma'am. Madame.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jenaba Bengora, and I'm the Commissioner General for the National Revenue Authority of Sierra Leone. Thank you, Rebecca. You led our TADAT in 2016. And we just had a repeat in 2025, this year actually. Thank you very much, CG Regina, for your sharing your experience, which all of us really can identify. But I just want you to please share with us, because I know during the period, the 7 years for the RMTF, there were many economic shocks, including COVID-19. How did you manage the reforms that you led during that time? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another question before? We'll take one more back there, and then we'll have, let you prepare, Commissioner General. One more right over here. There we go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kemi. I'm an MBS student at Georgetown. Can you hear me?
No, I can't.
Yes, my name is Kemi. I'm an MBS student at Georgetown. So this question is for Rebecca. And
for me. I'm not the panelist.
So it's more generic. So it's really encouraging to hear how countries like Kenya, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, and European countries pushing forward with reforms with the help of the IMF. So in countries like Nigeria, where I'm from, and I think others too, we've seen cases where reforms would start, reports are written, systems are upgraded, but things tend to stall. So what have you learned about keeping the reforms alive, the momentum alive, and especially where the politicals fade, you're done with the easy wins? How can country really own these reforms and not just implement it during the short time? How can you own it? That's my question.
So you're asking about ownership. Is that what you're asking? Okay. Okay, we'll start with you, Regina. We'll let you answer the first one, and I'll try to answer the second one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So COVID came, we had already started the reforms. And obviously with the hard shutdown, we had a slight delay because I think it became a bit difficult for us to kickstart, especially the big ticket reform that we're looking at the system side. So we experienced a bit of a delay in the implementation. But however, we managed to recoup on time and then ensure that we delivered through our project management, like what Thabo spoke about, to say with every reform you need to have a project management team in place. But I think what was also exciting was I think there was a government commitment to ensure that during that lockdown we delivered. So we also had, I think, short-term interventions. We looked at reforms that were easy to deliver, given the constraints of the lockdown and also the resources that we had on the ground. Because I think most countries had to work with either off-site, if you were prepared for that. But looking at the Zimbabwe context, we're not quite prepared for off-site work. So we had to transition during COVID to have a certain percentage of staff coming to work and continue with the business whilst the rest were at home. So we managed to work with that core team and ensure that we implemented reforms that will give us short-term gains. For example, the segmentation, I think it came in handy during that period because we're then able to segment our taxpayers, focus on the high-impact large taxpayer office development. So we managed to get through the COVID season because we had put in that reform, which was critical, but it required, I think, limited resource and input rather than the big ticket issues like the tax system. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and actually, you rebounded. In fact, most of the countries in the RMTF were quite resilient, and they rebounded after COVID-19.
Yeah, sure.
So we really appreciate you continue to drive those reforms, and that made the difference. Because reforms early on help you through those times.
Yes.
So really appreciate it. So if I understood the question, to make sure I do understand, you were asking about political will, stops and starts with reforms, is that correct? And how we work in that environment, basically. Well, first of all, let me say that it's the country's political will, it's their reform, right? So they own the reform. The IMF and other development partners are there to assist and to help with capacity development. We can often see where we may be able to provide some assistance to give them options, especially in a political environment. Sometimes you might need to do a big change, but you can't do a big change right away. You need to do it in small steps, in a progression, in a sequenced way. So one thing the IMF has done through capacity development is look at those opportunities of how we can start with a sequenced reform and work with the country. And I especially think it's important to find leaders in the organizations who can drive those reforms to help. And sometimes those leaders are at the very top, like Commissioner General, and sometimes they're mid-management. And you can work with those to help drive those reforms. But at the end of the day, it's the country's will that is how the reforms come to be. And I can't change the will of the country. I can only make recommendations through our capacity development on where we see the opportunities, and especially in that political landscape, maybe some of the ways that can be sequenced. So it's a complex. Sometimes we go a step forward, sometimes a step back. But the important thing is that it's continually moving forward. And sometimes it just takes time, and that's okay. It takes the time to do it. So I think we're toward the end of our talk, and I really, really appreciate our speakers. Thank you so much for coming today and sharing insightful examples. I think it was very interesting. I found it interesting, at least. And let me underscore maybe two themes that I heard from today. The one first, and I actually just mentioned it, is that reforms are built over time. And capacity development can help. It can help countries with those building blocks to then over time become more lasting legacies of reform so that the governments can improve their revenue, they can improve their spending, their public finance, so that they can follow the reform agenda and attain sustainable growth. But countries are in the driving seat, but the IMF is there to support you. And second, capacity development is a partnership. When we work together, we can do more. And I want to thank our esteemed panel and our attentive audience, and thank you for the questions as well. We will now close this talk and also conclude the capacity development events for the 2025 annual meetings. We are grateful to all of you who joined us, and once again to our donor partners who are enabling this critical work. And thank you, and see you next time. Thank you.